Hey, Phil.
Hey, Senda.
You want to talk about...
Co-GMing?
I get it.
Cue music. And welcome to another episode of Pandas Talking Games. I'm one of your co-hosts, Phil.
And I am your other co-host, Senda.
Before we get started tonight, I wanted to tell you about a very cool adventure pack for the Sprawl called the Synth Convergence. It was written by Craig Duffy, listener of the show, and Chris Stonebush. Craig was nice enough to send over a copy as a thanks to us, and I took a few minutes this weekend to read it over. I've run the Sprawl a bunch of times, and it's actually one of my favorite PBTA games next to Masks. And the Synth Convergence is a trio of adventures, as I said already, for the Sprawl. And it's cool because it allows you to fit it into your current game. Because what they've done is they've, instead of naming specific corps, they've just called them Corp 1, Corp 2, and they give you like a little bit of a, in the first chapter, they kind of tell you how the corps are going to play out, so you can kind of just fit them, like fit your favorite corpse in there. Not corpses. Just corpse.
Yeah.
Fit them in there, and then that way it'll just kind of merge into your game. And it's like just 3 really cool adventures. So I really dug it. And if you play the Sprawl and you are looking for some extra adventures, any one of them could be played as a standalone. And then all 3 kind of go together as like a little trio. You can go get the Synth Convergence on Drive-Thru RPG. We'll put a link in the show notes. Thanks, Craig.
So with all that out of the way, tonight's topic is something that a number of people have asked us about on various occasions, but we've always sort of deflected it because we never felt qualified to talk about it. It is Co-GMing. So at Metatopia, while we were running playtests for the Ditch Lilies, we kind of accidentally just started Co-GMing, and it was great. Like, we just started doing it, and it happened, and we liked it. So tonight we're going to do something a little bit different. We're actually going to sit down and live, like we haven't figured any of this out in advance. We're going to negotiate how we want to co-GM so that for the 2020 con season, we can start doing it for some of the games that we run. So before we actually get into that negotiation, we're going to start by defining some terms. And for that, we need the definition panda.
It's me. So there are a few ways to define co-GMing. And we want to focus on a specific type for this episode. But at its simplest, co-GMing means that a session or campaign has more than one GM. But there's a few different ways that could work.
Right, so there's co-GMing the way that I have done it before, which is campaign-level co-GMing. So that's where you have co-GMs who are sharing a campaign, but a given GM may run a whole session or a whole arc and then hand off to another GM, which is also sometimes known as like a rotating GM. Although that can mean multiple things too, right? So this is, Andy and I have done this. Yeah,
you guys have done this with Andy's D&D world.
Right.
Okay, the next one is event co-GMing, right? So there are gaming events often found at cons, although I've seen people do this like for private events, where a large event is being played out across multiple tables. So one event is occurring, but there are like multiple tables. Each table has a GM, each table has a group of players. They are all playing their parts being run by that GM, but the whole overarching event is kind of being coordinated at a higher level by usually like a floating GM or two that are kind of the go-betweens to all the tables, and then kind of figuring out how all of the things that happen at the tables who roll up into that conclusion, right? Like I saw this once done at a Gen Con where Paizo was doing a secession of the Drow throne. And there were just like all the tables were different houses or fractions of houses. It was bonkers. Like it was a whole ballroom full of tables.
That sounds really intense.
Yep. The next one on the list is GM-less or distributed GMing, right? So this is where the GM role is actually broken down and managed by the whole table. That's a form of co-GMing.
Right.
Because in essence, everybody's doing some part of the GMing responsibilities, but no one person in that configuration has the role of GM.
Right, but we all do bits and pieces of it about driving the story and making cool scenes for other people to be in and blah, 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 right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what's fun and cool about GM-less games. And then the last one is concurrent GMing. So this is where more than one GM is at a single table or a single session, and the co-GMs are sharing the actual workload of GMing this particular game.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's probably the rarest version of co-GMing.
Yeah.
I have zero numbers to back this up, but I suspect if we were to poll the internet, concurrent GMing is the rarest version of co-GMing.
We can just say it with authority.
Say it with authority. Concurrent GMing is the rarest version. I have no data to back that up with.
We have all the none data.
That's correct. So anyway, for tonight, we are interested in concurrent GMing. We really liked how we wound up working together during those digitally playtests to both make the game interesting, and it was fun, right? It was like a cool way to kind of hang out together and run a game.
Yeah.
But we also recognize that there's some challenges around getting this to work right. Now, I think we were able to luckily draw on the fact that we're co-hosts.
Right.
So
yes.
We have a natural kind of back and forth rhythm with us. So that worked to our advantage, I think, when we were co-GMing. But if we're going to do it correctly, then we do actually need to hammer some stuff out. And so for the rest of this episode, that is what we're going to do. We're going to work on hammering that stuff out. And just as a note, from this point on, when we talk about co-GMing, we mean concurrent GMing. We mean two GMs. We mean us.
Yes, at the table.
Okay.
Like I said at the beginning, we're going to live negotiate how this is going to work. So we're going to figure this out on the mics.
Absolutely.
It'll be fun.
So in order to make co-GMing work, we got to look at a couple areas. What's the first area?
Power dynamic, right?
Yeah. So we have two people that are going to have the GM role. Are we full equals? Is there a lead support structure? Like, we're going to have to figure that out, right? Like, what's going to be our power dynamic when we're running the game? And we may even have to figure what's that power dynamic when we're not running the game.
Right.
Right. Because it may be different.
Stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
It may be different. And that's deciding things like if we're not sure about a rule or something at the table, who makes the final decision on that?
Yeah. Because the last thing anyone's going to want to see at the table is us arguing about which one of us is going to make the decision. So we're going to solve that by talking about that now.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool.
What's our next topic?
Workload.
Right. Who's going to be responsible for which parts of GMing the game? We know there's 8 different skills that are in play at any one given time.
Yeah.
Who's going to do which parts of those 8 skills?
Oh boy, but then we'll have to define them anyway. Yes, good. And then we have handoffs. So that's
like how and when we're going to change up who's talking at the table.
Yep.
Right? Because we can't both be talking at the table.
No, that would be bad.
That's weird.
And then games.
Yeah, like we need to pick a game to try this out with. And I'm going to say that for tonight, I think we can just simply say that we're probably going to do the ditch lilies like this.
Yeah.
But we should do a not
us game.
Us game. Yeah. We should do a fun game to GM together. Negotiation time.
Yay, negotiation time.
All right, so going back to our list of our 4 things that we talked about, I'm just going to open it up with a question, which is, how do we want the dynamic of our co-GMing to be when we're at the table? And then subsequently, we'll talk about outside of the game, but we'll just start with first, like when we're running the game.
So I mean, there's a lot of different layers to this, but I have one part that's very clear and easy to me, which is that you're the rules guy.
Okay. I think that's going to be workload, right? I think that part of that will be
fine.
workload.
Well, no, part of that is workload, but I mean, in terms of dynamic at the table, if there were a rules question at play, I would defer to your understanding of the rules.
Okay.
That's what I'm going for here.
Right. So who's our tiebreaker? Which one of us is the tiebreaker if we get stuck? Because I think that collaboratively, 90% of the time, you and I are going to kind of either be on the same page or be able to play off of each other, right? Like I suspect, I suspect most of the time you're going to say a thing and then I'm going to be like, cool, I'm going to pick that up and run with it. Or I'm going to say a thing, you're going to be like, cool, I got it. I'm going to spin it out this way. But 10% of the time, one of us has to be in charge. So who do we think that should be?
You.
Okay. All right. So we're actually going to lean on an existing structure that we already have.
Right, which is you write the notes. That's workload again.
That is workload. Okay. So anyway, during the game, I will take kind of I will take a slightly more leadership position, and you'll take kind of a slightly more support position.
Right. So to flesh that out a little bit more, my favorite way to run games is reactively. I've written an article about this at Gnome Stew, and we talked about it a while ago. It's been out there for a while. And the thing about running games reactively is every now and then you hit that moment where you're like, how do I drive this story forward? And I don't necessarily always feel like I come up with the best ideas to make that happen. So I feel like that's something that you are extremely good at. And that is in particular why I am saying that you should be in a leadership role in terms of doing those things, because I think that you are better at making story happen than I am.
Okay. I think that's totally fair.
Right. I felt like I should put a little bit more context around that.
No, I think that's good. and I think where I saw it when we were doing the Digital Elise game, which was really good, was because the Digital Elise game was really alpha and still looking up things. There was a point where something was going on in the game, and I went to go look something up,
right?
And you kind of jumped in and reacted to what was going on already, and just kind of pushed the story forward.
Right.
And what was nice was it bought me time.
Right. Like gave you plenty of time to write some notes down and look some things up. Yeah. While I just did a scene. In fact, we were playing in those waters, and I would say we were playing in those waters in a very safe way, because since we had not negotiated any of this stuff, I was specifically not making any GMing decisions, right? So I jumped in on that, and I kept going with what you were already doing, and I did not make any storyline decisions in that time and space, because you had a thing that you were doing and you were running the game. Right. So I jumped in as the character, and we just had an in-character conversation until we got to a point that another decision needed to be made, and then I passed it back to you.
So I think a thing that we should, because this is going to kind of blend a little bit of handoff and workload, which I'm okay with, because now we're just kind of organically
it's going to
negotiating. I think that one of the things that we should establish is that at any given time, one of us is the face to the table.
Yeah.
Right. So if by default it's me starting the game out, right, then the handoff is when I hand off from being the face over to you.
Yes.
Right. And then I think the reason I bring that up is because I think then when it comes to GMing decisions, I think the person who's the face should feel free to make any GMing decisions that they feel necessary, that they feel is coming up in the game, and they can always go to the other person as a consult.
Yeah.
But otherwise could just roll with it. So for instance, if we were playing masks and you were the face and I had fallen, we had switched and I was now in the support role, you were kind of in the lead, and somebody rolled a 7 to 9 or somebody rolled a 6- and you had to make a hard move.
Yeah.
You could just make the hard move.
Well, yes. Right. And to clarify, that's part of what was interesting about the scenario in which we accidentally started co-GMing, is that because we hadn't had this negotiation, I did not make any GMing decisions, right?
Right.
But if we were actually passing the table back and forth like that, we have to have the authority in both cases to make GMing decisions.
I agree. So I think that I think in that case, you're, fully capable, not fully capable, fully empowered to make that GMing decision. But at the same time, maybe I'm running the table and a 6- comes up and I kind of look at the list and then I turn and I look at you and I'm like, what do you think? And you're like, how about this one? And I'm like, cool, and then I keep going.
Right.
Right. So consults are always possible, but whoever's sitting in the hot seat, I guess maybe that's what we'll call it. Whoever's sitting in the hot seat, and
Gets to.
All right, so let's define a couple things here, right? I'm going to borrow terms from another.
Oh boy, here we go.
I'm going to borrow terms from another location. So whoever's topping the game.
I knew that was coming.
All right. Whoever's topping the game is empowered to make those jamming decisions.
Here we are,
but topping,
folks.
let's be clear.
Yep.
Topping doesn't denote leadership or support.
No.
Right? So the support person can be topping the game, the leader person can be topping the game, and we can switch back and forth. Really what the leader role comes down to is it's really the tiebreaker. If we don't collaborate on a decision, or if we get stuck and we're like, I don't know, then I'll make the decision.
Yeah. You be the decider.
Right. And then that way we're never stuck.
Right.
So if we ever get stuck, then
we'll just be like,
then I will
Phil,
unstuck us.
Make the call. And then
Absolutely.
And I will say, cool, I agreed that you were going to make the call, and then we won't fight about it. We'll just move right the fuck on.
Yeah. I mean, I suspect I suspect what we're defining here is the 10% of our experience, but it is the 10% that could be the
make or break
debacle that everyone remembers.
Yes.
Right?
It is the make or break 10%, because when Phil and Senda are suddenly having a whispered argument at the table for 15 minutes while everyone stares at us.
No good.
That's no bueno.
Good.
That's not how we want Co-GMing to work. So yes, that needs to be a thing that we can resolve honestly in a minute or less. Right?
Yeah.
So it has to be like me saying, I think this, and you say, I think this completely different thing, and I say, cool. What do you want to do? And you say, let's do this weird mix or whatever.
Yep.
And I go, cool, go. Right?
Right. So either we find some compromise, or then I'll make the decision.
Or you make a decision. Yeah.
Yep. All right, cool. All right, so I think that works great. I think that in terms of topping the table, I'm totally fine. Kind of setting the pace for that. Cool. Let's talk a little bit about workload. I think this is going to be a 2-part episode.
It may be a 2-part episode, and I think that's fine.
I think that's fine as well.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's fine because it's more important for us. Oh, I'm sorry. We're not even done with power dynamic.
No.
We just talked about at table power dynamic.
Yes, we did.
Okay. So now I know this is a 2-part episode because I don't even think we're going to get to workload.
Yeah.
Which is okay. Let's finish up our talk about power dynamic, and then we'll wrap up and we'll continue on next week.
Yes.
So, okay, cool. Power dynamic. We talked about the in-game power dynamic, which I think is very crucial because in-game really needs somebody to be the tiebreaker. Now, taking it out of the game. So outside the game, I'm thinking about things like session prep. If we were doing a campaign, we would, if we were doing a campaign, then we would talk about, campaign prep and things like that. I'm going to say right now, my current focus on this is that we're talking about we're talking about convention one-shots.
Yes.
Because I don't know how we would co-GM a game not in person.
Yeah, I think that would be very difficult. But so, do you mind if I jump in? Some thoughts on outside of the game. So,
absolutely.
So the really interesting thing is that between designing games together and with me doing development work on Hydra Hackers and stuff, and actually helping you plan one-shots previously, like, we're actually really good at talking out prep work and compromising on that stuff. And the thing about outside of the game is there's no time limit and there's no spotlight, right?
Yeah.
So, like, there's no one sitting there staring at you, waiting for you to make a decision. So, to me, the outside of the game prep, like the actual decision making on, like, what kind of story do we want to tell and, like, who are NPCs, like that kind of thing, to me, I think that's pretty equal because I think that we're really good at talking through things and compromising on that stuff.
Yes, I could not agree more. I don't think we need a lead support kind of role outside the game. I think outside the game, we're just truly collaborative.
Yeah.
And that we'll just work on those things as equals, contributing ideas and putting it together. Now, because I think you understand this, but I don't think necessarily everyone who listens to us will understand this. while we are equals in decision making and contribution, when we get to next week and talk about workload outside the game, that may or may not be symmetrical.
Yeah,
it could be asymmetrical.
It absolutely could be. And to be entirely honest, just to give a sneak preview on that, a lot of that will probably depend on each of our individual workloads going into the convention.
You say that, but I will say that it will be asymmetrical, not because of that, but because only one of us actually writes notes.
That's true, because for me, prep doesn't usually involve writing a whole lot of things down.
Correct.
But that's because I don't need to.
My guess is that in our collaborative style, we will work up the idea for the session, and then I will go write it.
Yeah.
And put I will probably use my standard format of bullets, like my OneNote standard format, and then we can kind of review it together, and make sure that we're on the same page. But I'm pretty sure when we talk about dividing up workload, I will take the responsibility for writing
it's
the ideas that we create.
So part of that, I agree with you. You're right. And part of the reason for that is we have very different prep styles for our games. And my prep for a game really usually involves like an inciting incident, some sort of driving character or front that has motivation. And that's pretty much it.
Mine varies by game because I'm a stickler for genre.
I know.
So depending on what we play will depend on how much prep I require.
Yeah.
Often I just need usually my prep will consist of what would happen, what's going to happen here, right? Like if the heroes don't intervene,
if they don't do anything, yeah.
Right. What does the bad guy do? And then I can play off of the rest of that. So yeah, we'll figure it out. You will probably end up doing the notes specifically because in most cases you are the person who wants more notes. Yeah, and if we're playing a game, like for instance, if we were playing like Tales from the Loop,
right,
or things from
something
the Flood,
there's a reason I don't run mysteries and heists.
Correct. Yeah.
Let's just be straight up here.
Right. If we're going to do something like that, I suspect that will fall more on me. But I do like that the idea generation, the coming up with the plot, the NPCs, what's going on, kind of working through what's happening, that all of that is actually just two equals working that out.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel pretty confident that we should stop here.
Yeah, and save the rest for next week.
And save the rest for next week. Okay. So we'll pick this topic up next week, and we'll continue on our negotiation. But before we head out of here, Senda's going to tell us about another show on the Misdirected Mark Network.
It's true. The Misdirected Mark podcast is back because it's December and their November hiatus is over. Hooray! So you can join Chris, Phil, and Bob live every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. my time to break down and get inside games, game mastering, playing games, and game design in an effort to entertain and inform you.
Indeed, indeed.
Are you excited? Are you excited to be recording again tomorrow night?
I am actually excited to get back behind the mics with those guys.
Yeah.
I kind of miss them.
Yeah.
So I'm psyched.
Cool.
Hey, listeners, you like podcasts because you're listening to one right now.
What?
So any chance that you also like audiobooks? Because if you do, did you know that you can now get Never Unprepared, the complete Game Master's Guide to Session Prep, which was written by me? You can get that now as an audiobook at audible.com. So if you like audiobooks, and if you like GMing advice, and hey, if you're listening to this, you must like GMing advice.
Or something.
So if you like listening to people talking about GMing advice, you're probably going to dig Never Unprepared. So go and jump over to audible.com, check it out. We'll put a link for it in the show notes. Say, Senda, where can people reach us on the internet?
Well, you can find us on Twitter at Pandas Talk Games. You can find us on the Misdirected Mark forums. You can drop us an email, panda@misdirectedmark.com. And that's about it these days. Isn't it? Did I miss any?
Correct, indeed.
It's changed. Cool. And once they find us in one of those places, what can they do with that information?
Please send us topics. We love to do shows about the things that you find interesting. We try to keep it to pretty much like 98% of the things that you suggest. This show being the anomaly.
Kind of, except people did request it. We just kept
right.
telling them no.
Exactly. Kind of, but you all did actually
ask for it.
Anyway, we do actually love to do shows about the things that you find interesting. So please, please, please send us more topics. I can never really get enough of them. And actually, at some point, I'm going to do a topic purge and just throw away all the ones we have and start all over. Because some of the ones that are left over are starting to get kind of stale. Like if I go through it a whole bunch of times and can't think of a show, like some of them just are stale. Like, it's okay. Well, you can ask them all to us again or come up with all new ones.
Yep.
Either way, please send us your show topics. We love to get them. If you like what we do here elsewhere on the Misdirected Mark Network, you should consider supporting our Patreon campaign. Go to patreon.com/MMP. Patrons of the show get the bonus outtakes from this show, which are usually pretty hilarious. They get the after show from the Misdirected Mark, which is a grab bag of hilarious to salacious to, I don't know, just
stuff.
Bonkers
stuff.
I get access to our Slack room, which is great. It's full of awesome people who are chatting on Slack all day. You can come join us on the Minecraft channel, come play some Minecraft with us on Schmitty's Minecraft server, because that's pretty rockin'. Because we started a new season where it's pretty populated right now. It's kind of fun. And you get access to all sorts of other goodies as we kind of put things together and disseminate them to our patrons. The money that you contribute to support us keeps the podcasts on the network live and even empowers us to go out and get content that we so desperately want to add to the network, that we are capable of actually recruiting people rather than just hoping somebody shows up with with a show that we want.
Right.
So that's pretty powerful. And that's really all because of all of the support that you continue to show us month after month. So thank you very much. We also like to shout out to a few of our patrons each week. Senda, would you like to shout out to our patrons this week?
I would love to. PK Sullivan, the Queen's Royal Rocketeer, and also the lucky man who has just held the Call of Cthulhu or the Fate of Cthulhu book in his hot little hands for the first time and seen his name printed upon it. Go PK. We're excited to see it. Steve Radabo. Hi, Steve. Thanks. And Ryan Bolter. Thank you so much, Ryan. I was just reading your question on the Twitters and then we did not answer it.
But don't worry. We'll put it in the topic list.
Mm-hmm.
Say, Senda, there's a thing that people can do to support the show if they're already supporting the show via Patreon or unable to support the show via Patreon, which is always okay. It's a thing that makes it easier for people to find us, makes us oh so happy, like pandas who've eaten too much bamboo at Thanksgiving dinner. What is that thing?
That is leaving us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or the podcatcher of your choice. If you leave it somewhere that is not the U.S. Apple Podcast Store, please tell us, because they're really hard to find and track down, but it makes me super giddy to read them. Like, there was one that I just went back and saw, and she's a super geek that happened just a couple of weeks ago, and I missed it, and I went and I found it and I read it, and it made me super duper happy. So just know that every now and then when I need artistic validation, I just go read all the reviews and I'm like, okay, life is good. So thank you all for leaving them. Anyway, Phil, when are we going to try this out? This Co-GMing thing, yeah.
The next con game.
All right.
Next convention.
Nice. This show is a joint production of She's a Super Geek and Misdirected Mark Productions, the media arm of Encoded Designs.
Show me what you got, eh? Show me what you got. Show me what you got, eh? Show me what you got. Show me what you got, eh? Show me what you got. Show me what you got.
How was your Thanksgiving?
It was great. I went over to Wen's house.
Yeah.
And
with your dad.
I know. Dragged my dad. He did not participate in the game of For the Queen, but he did watch.
Sure.
And I think that he enjoyed watching it because he was laughing with us and stuff. So I was like, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Might be a bit of a stretch to get him into, his first role-playing game in his retirement years, but...
And, and he doesn't have to. Like, it's fine. But it made me happy that he enjoyed just chilling with us while we played it.
Yeah, that's...
Like, he enjoyed watching.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Wen kept offering him the deck. Like, you can jump in anytime. He was like, no. Like, every time the deck came around, because we were sitting on couches, so we were passing the whole deck around.
Yeah.
So every time it came around, Wen was like, and he was like, no.
That's funny.
But it was great. It was like, we went over thinking like, okay, we'll go have food and it'll be some hours, right? Whatever. No, we were there for 9 hours.
Yeah. Well, first of all, you ate ridiculously early.
Well, we ate at like 1, and then we ate again at like 7.
Right.
Bloop. It was just wild. It was conversation everywhere from like gaming and like all of our game stuff and the LARP we played for my birthday, because of course that's still coming up because it's still like was very intense, to like my father telling people about how he found woods porn as a kid.
Woods porn, man. It's a thing.
Except it was in a cave.
Yeah, so, I mean, I say it's a thing. It was a thing. Like,
it was a
now
thing.
we have
Now
flash drives and
internet.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We could do a whole episode on woods porn, so we won't.
Anyway, how was your Thanksgiving?
Yeah, I went away to my parents' house for Thanksgiving, and this year I made the cranberry sauce because the person who usually makes it was away in Ireland, and I really love cranberry sauce, so I was like, I'll just take matters into my own hands and make my own, having never done it before.
It's not that hard to do.
It's not. It's actually not that hard. It's delicious, and I totally nailed it. I thought I didn't. When I finished cooking it, I took a taste of it while it was still warm, and it tasted way too orangey.
Yeah.
But I threw it all in the fridge and let it chill for a couple days, and brought it down to my mom's. And Thanksgiving Day, we took it out of the container, and I gave it a quick taste. And having had cooled and settled for a few days, it was orange ginger cranberry sauce, and it was
perfect.
It was killer. And then this year, once again, our turkey, our Alton Brown recipe turkey, was so damn good. It came out of the oven and it was literally swimming in juices, which I bailed out of the container so that it wouldn't rest in them. And then my dad cut it up, and I snuck in the kitchen and kept stealing little pieces of it because it was so juicy on its own. It was ridiculous. It was like one of the best turkeys we've made, and that's saying a lot.
I know they're. I hear about them every year. Well, I will say Wen also made a very good turkey, but I haven't had your turkey to compare.
I'm willing to make it on a not Thanksgiving.
Not Thanksgiving?
Yeah, like I'm willing to do a small turkey because I can do any size turkey because it's cooked to temperature. Like I just have a formula for it that I can figure out roughly when it's going to be done. But the other thing that was a huge hit was my mom didn't know what to do for sides this year because she did a couple staples, and then she's like, I'm just going to roast a whole tray of vegetables. So she cut up like potato, onion, sweet potato, parsnip, Brussels sprouts, and maybe like one or two other things. Threw them all under the broiler with olive oil on them.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I could not get enough of these roasted vegetables. I am roasting all my vegetables from now on. Like, all other methods of cooking vegetables have died on that Thanksgiving table. Listen, this is the only time I've ever had Brussels sprouts where it wasn't covered in bacon, where I was like...
Have I not fed you
I don't think
sprouts?
You have yet. I know your recipe, and I suspect your recipe would also be very good.
Right, because it's basically like browned in butter till the outside bits are crispy.
So this one was
and the inside bits are cooked.
This was just broiled anyway. I ate so much of those roasted vegetables. I could not get enough of them. It was so good. Anyway, all in all, it was an amazing Thanksgiving meal, and I was quite pleased. Meow.
Did you do it again just so I could see your face?
Uh-huh.
Because it's a good face. Anyway. Okay. Bloop. Wow, I'm a cussy girl today. Bloop. Oh, I have a new podcast idea.
Yes, please tell me.
It's called Topping Tabletop.
Topping Tabletop. Yeah.
It's reminiscent of an old interview show that used to be out, except slightly different.
Yes, slightly different. Different topic. Okay.
Bloop.
Show me what you got.
Show me
what you got.
Show me what
Show me what you got.
I feel like I should text bloop Topping Tabletop.
Topping Tabletop.
What's
I'll
that
top
show going to be about?
It's going to be about toppings.
Where does the tabletop come in then?
It's the bottom.
Oh dear. Anyway, this is all going in the bonus outtakes.
Time to say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Stop.